what have I learned? I didn't see it. When we were here last time, I thought podcasts were cool. I thought it was a unique way of communicating with people. It's a cool concept. You can download it and listen to it on a plane. I did not see how it would apply to our business. My job is to grow the business in whatever that may take, whether it's more blogs, a help center, an app, a podcast, videos, whatever it is. I completely underestimated what a podcast could do. This is a direct way to teach. And I did not appreciate that. And you told me that. I was like, oh, it sounds cool. And then one customer called me and said, wow, I love the podcast.
This is episode 222 with Eric Knight of the Roll Your Pool podcast. Enjoy. Welcome to your go-to podcast for the pool and spa industry. My name is Tyler Rasmussen.
And my name is Greg Villafania. And this is the Pool Chasers Podcast.
All right, so our good friend Eric Knight was in town doing some training and doing some other stuff, so had him here to be on the podcast. What's up, Eric?
It is great to be here, guys. Thanks for having me back in studio. First time I've ever actually recorded in the studio. Because the last time I was on your show, we had to do it on Zoom. Thank you, COVID.
Thanks, Harold.
And Harold. Yeah, he took too long. Harold, if you're listening to this, you talked too long, and I didn't get a chance to record.
Everybody, I think, that knows Harold knows that.
So give us the 411. What are you doing here in town?
Well, we teach water chemistry on behalf of Pentair. They ask us to come into their Pentair University sessions, and we teach water chemistry for them. Now, they don't pay us to do this or anything. It's just a great opportunity for us, but it's a great collection of customers. It's an awesome chance to get in front of people and teach things that they've never been taught before. We look at water from the perspective of what does water want? Because I promise you, water never read those textbooks. And yet we're forced to comply to textbooks, which I make the reference that that's really like imposing your will upon water instead of listening to what water wants and obeying physics. And so the general concept of the class is understanding two different physics concepts. And if you obey those two things, it's very hard to get your pool out of line. Like you'd have to try to screw it up. And yet the traditional way of pool care is chasing pH, chasing alkalinity, just dumping chemicals and chemicals and chemicals into this pool. And you never actually get control over it because you're trying to control things that physically cannot be controlled. We look at it very differently. What has water been doing for millennia? What has it been doing since the dinosaurs were around? The same laws of physics back then apply today. And that's what we teach.
Did you do your Mike Tyson impression by chance?
No.
Damn,
no,
if I was there, I would have requested
You would have asked for it?
I do too many impressions, man. You're going to get me in trouble.
Hi, everybody. My name is Derek, and I can talk to you about water chemistry.
That's not me. Mike, if you're listening to this, I have nothing but respect for Iron Mike Tyson.
Who can we blame it on?
Oh, man.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I do too many impressions. Like I do impressions of people in the industry when I hear them because I grew up in my family. I don't know why this is, but like I grew up listening to Weird Al Yankovic and stuff like that. And man. I just learned how to do funny voices from an early age on. So I can pretty much imitate just about any accent or voice that I've heard. And I don't have to hear it a lot. Like I could just do it. I'm not going to do it on the show, but
Come
on. It gets me in some trouble. So
the Running with Scissors album, dude, is one of my all-time favorite
It's a great album. Dude. It is such a great album.
Weird Al is so funny.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Have you seen that show? I haven't watched it yet. Have you seen the show?
No, I haven't. But
they just made it.
I still remember almost every lyric to those songs because you grow up listening to them all the time.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I still know all the lyrics about the airplane one. It was so funny, dude.
Yeah, but like I can hear some like EA Sports. It's in the game.
That sounds so good.
I love it.
Well, you guys have a really nice microphone too. So I'm not used to this. I record on a $60 microphone with $9 Amazon Basics in-ear headphones. Like this is legit. So this is really cool. And when we do the Rule Your Pool podcast, which I think we're going to talk about since you guys gave us the idea and helped set us up with that. So thank you for that. It's a totally different concept than talking to people like this. So I actually enjoy this. It's a nice change of pace. So
you came out of the closet and hung out with us.
That's right. My closet studio, man. I'm out of the closet studio and into a real studio. And it is uncomfortable, Tyler.
Yeah. So since you brought it up, we will jump right into the Orenda podcast called Rule Your Pool. Mm-hmm. And I'm a listener. I've been listening since day one, obviously helped get that off the ground. But it was because I've seen you do so many classes, so many videos, and I was like, dude, you need to do a podcast because it's just so much easier to digest that information. We can't all make it to, say, a Pentair seminar or something at a trade show, but we can bottle up those topics and talk about it on a podcast. Like that's great. And that's what you guys have done. So curious, what have you learned from doing it? I mean, how long you been doing it now? A
we
year?
started in like, it was during COVID. We started in late summer of 2020.
Oh, okay. Wow,
Yeah.
time flies.
I know. It's been 2 years.
Wow.
It's crazy to think about. We got 88 episodes now, or actually we just recorded the 88th here right before we got on this one. So 87 published. Yeah, we really enjoy it. I never would have thought. So what have I learned? You were right. I didn't see it. When we were here last time, I thought podcasts were cool. I thought it was a unique way of communicating with people. It's a cool concept. You can download it and listen to it on a plane. One of my favorite podcasts of all time is called Hardcore History by Dan Carlin. Absolutely love that. I've learned so much, and I thought it's a really cool medium. I did not see how it would apply to our business. And my role at Orenda is kind of undefined. I don't have a job title. My job is to grow the business in whatever that may take, whether it's more blogs, a help center, an app, a podcast, videos, whatever it is. I completely underestimated what a podcast could do. And you made a point, and it didn't hit me until a customer actually called me, that pool professionals are working all day. They're not going to stop for a 4-minute video. They don't have time. They're trying to get to 12 pools a day or whatever it is. Homeowners can watch those. And pool guys might watch those if they have a big enough problem. But we were producing so many videos, and they're costly. The videos are not cheap. Listeners out there, like if you think you're just going to make a video catalog like we have, you better pony up because it's a big investment, and it's not even just money. It's time. The amount of time that it took. Even though I wasn't editing the videos directly, I had to do reviews, and you'd go through multiple iterations of the same video. And, oh, wait, no, at this time signature, that's the wrong piece of B-roll and stuff. It's exhausting. It's absolutely exhausting. Orenda Academy about killed us. 4 Pillars was better because we had a better system to it, but we're talking hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours if you added it up in our company. The podcast takes me about 2 to 3 times the length of the episode to produce. So if it's a 30-minute episode, it's going to be about an hour to 90 minutes, maybe 2 hours to edit and publish. That's insanely good ROI considering the fact that pool professionals are listening while they're working. This is a direct way to teach. And I did not appreciate that. And you told me that. I was like, oh, it sounds cool. And then one customer called me and said, wow, I love the podcast. Really? That was like 2 days after we released our first episode. I had no idea what someone would find it because we deliberately did not tell anybody about it. We just wanted to see if people would find it. We
You
didn't
said what
advertise.
podcast?
Exactly.
I already forgot.
That's identity theft. Oh my gosh. Yeah, exactly. What, we did that? We did something. So now it's become like one of my favorite things to do each week. And it's one of Jared's favorite things to do as well. And we don't do every episode together. Like I'll have to sometimes do them by myself, but I genuinely look forward to recording a podcast. It's a very fun thing.
It's great because you can, if you combined all your episodes together, you can scrape through any part of it and you will learn something. That's what I love most about it is that, you understand that people's time is valuable. I know you guys give each other a hard time about certain things.
About everything?
Yeah. But it's really, quick, very quick to like jump right into, what you need to discuss. So I like that a lot.
Well, thanks. I mean, the podcast has definitely devolved into just Jared and Eric ribbing each other for stupid things. They're just inside jokes. We have fun doing it. Let's be honest. Teaching water chemistry is normally a boring subject, you would think. How do you make that engaging? How do you make that fun? How do you keep people from falling asleep, whether it's listening to a podcast or taking your class and not just nodding off in your class? Well, you have to make it relatable.
Exactly.
So I would rather have short episodes that are to the point and really explain something in relatable terms using a lot of analogies and stuff. I'm not a chemist. I never was. And a lot of people think I I am because I teach chemistry professionally, which I do. But the truth is, listeners, I haven't taken a chemistry class since high school. I'm not a chemist. I have taken a ton of online education on it, though, professionally. So I watch a ton of YouTube videos. I've taken online courses. I have really sharpened my axe by reading what do the drinking water industry people do? What does the irrigation industry do? What do the cooling tower industries do? Because they're all dealing with water too. And when you look at those that are heavily regulated, like the EPA regulates drinking water like you would not believe. When you look at their education, it is so much more robust than what we have in the pool industry. It's laughable. I think those people know what they're talking about. And one thing that was consistent in all that research of all the other ones was the LSI. They talk about the saturation index. They refer to it constantly. Internationally, this is not like unique to America. And people will say, well, the LSI was made for boilers. It wasn't made for pools. And that's true, but it's been adapted to pools because water is water. Water doesn't care about you. It doesn't care how good you are or how long you've been doing this. Water cares about only one thing, and that's equilibrium. And we measure that using the LSI. So why wouldn't we use that in pools? And when we understand that and we respect that, there is nothing you can do to change that fundamental concept of physics. You can't do that. So don't try. Embrace it, adapt your practices to reality.
So I want to ask you a very basic question.
Or alkaline. And another word for basic is alkaline. Just so
there you go.
Yeah.
So there could be some new listeners or just people that haven't gone down this path yet. But say there's somebody that's brand spanking new to this industry and doesn't really know anything about water chemistry. What is the best place for somebody to start? Because I feel like if you come in sideways or in the middle, you might just get confused and you're not going to like further develop your knowledge on this. So what do you suggest, somebody does to get more familiar with a lot of the things that you're talking about?
Are you referring to our podcast?
Either the podcast or like, where's maybe it's the Orenda Academy, maybe something very systematic, or maybe there's an episode where you talk, very basic from the start.
Well, I don't have show notes in front of me, which we joke about that on our podcast because normally I put like 3 or 4 bullet points on a screen and Jared never reads them anyway. So if I had that, I would know the episode numbers where we have these things. But generally I would say start with Orenda Academy. That's the basics. You're going to learn just the fundamentals. And honestly, like when you watch it, you'll realize we're not a video company. We're a chemical company. And so it's somewhat low budget, but we worked really hard on that. And so by going through, you learn the basics.
But you're going to learn.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're going to learn. You
That's
better.
what matters.
Otherwise, you're not paying attention. And then if you're going to go to the podcast, generally speaking, start at episode 1 or start at episode 0, where we give you context for what we're doing with this podcast, and start there. We talk about pH and alkalinity. Those 2 concepts right there are just incredibly misunderstood. Then we work through in order. Everything was methodically planned out for about the first 12 episodes. And then it's just, everything's gone spiraling downhill since then because we come up with ideas based on audience feedback, which is awesome. People ask questions and then we do an episode about it. But the first 12 or so were really well thought out in sequence that in order to understand episode 4, you had to listen to episode 3 if you knew nothing. So it builds into each episode. So we're not using terms in the podcast that we did not discuss in the first few episodes. We go through all of basically our glossary of what we refer to. LSI, calcium hardness, calcium carbonate, all these things are explained in the first 12 or so episodes of the podcast. And then once you have that framework, we do like a 4-part series on different types of chlorine and how you should manage pools on those different types of chlorine. We do our 4 pillars. We have an episode for each of our 4 pillars. And then we have an episode somewhere in there, and I don't know which one it is because I don't have the notes, where it's just an overview of our philosophy. But that just kind of explains who we are. And if you have a minute, I'll just kind of summarize what that is, which gives you context for how we teach and why we do it the way we do.
No, thank you.
Okay, cool.
So I'm just, totally.
I'm used to rejection. I have a PhD in disappointing my father, so it's all good.
Sorry, I always wanted to do that. No, get it.
Okay. We believe that water is best when it's as pure as possible with as little in it as possible. We want the most raw, I call it naked water, as you can have. Now, you need it balanced. So I'm not saying have no minerals in it, but I don't want a chemical cocktail in the backyard either. I want the simplest, purest water you can possibly have, where you make decisions to take things out of the equation. So at Orenda, we want to remove things from your water. We don't want to put more things into your water. That's really our thing. So our philosophy has 3 tenets. It's proactive pool care. So you're not reacting to everything. You're not waiting for a problem and then throwing a whole bunch of stuff to get rid of it. Proactive pool care is number 1. No chemical conflicts. You'll never see 2 products in the Orenda line that cancel each other out. We don't want any of that. And no long-term byproducts left behind. We want everything eco-friendly so that if you drain that pool, it will never kill a fish. That's what we want. We want it to be completely biodegradable, eco-friendly, whatever you want to call it, non-hazardous, everything. Everything we have is NSF 50. We will never have something that isn't NSF 50. It would completely contrast to our brand. So if it has a long-term byproduct in it, it's not an Orenda product. That kind of thing. So our whole philosophy is leave no trace. That's pretty, actually, I just came up with that. Maybe I need to put that on the website. But
stamp.
But essentially, we empower, we purify water by empowering people who treat it. And we empower people with the podcast, with the app, with the LSI calculator, with the website, with the blog, with the help center, with the academies. The list goes on because in our ecosystem, information is your currency. And if you don't have digestible information that is understandable and repeatable and shareable, it's all in your head. How do you scale that across your business? Good luck. You need to have some way of having a common understanding of what we're trying to do with water. That's the way I see it.
I love that too, because you're taking real life situations from being in the field. And I know for the most part, it is you and Jared, but you've had, guests like, was it Bill Drakely?
Yeah, we had Bill Drakely.
It was on the show talking about concrete and different reactions that it might have to different things. But you were talking about real life stuff that, somebody might be in a backyard and really experience it. Whereas not knocking textbooks, because that's where a lot of things come from, but that was, up to code and relevant at that exact time. But you bring up a lot of things that, are from experience, or somebody's contacted you with a problem you might never heard of before.
Right.
And, talking about the journey of that. I think that is one of my favorite parts too. I think that's cool.
Well, we've read every textbook. I've read every single textbook that I can find, front to back. And a lot of them say the same things, but a lot of them conflict with each other. And a lot of them conflict with their own pages earlier, like within the textbook. And that's what's so funny about it. It's like, wait a second, you just said 2 chapters ago something, and now you're saying that's not a thing?
Sounds like I'm reading a podcast transcript. Is this somebody's opinion?
Right.
Or what is this?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like,
I want tacos tomorrow.
Information changes as we learn. And so we want to understand. The way I look at it is like, we're not just going to have all new information all the time. There are some things that are immutable. They're out of our control. And those are laws of physics. I look at water very differently than your average chemical company would, because the chemical company is looking for, and we are a chemical company, by the way. Like, I make no apologies for selling chemicals, but we're not looking for problems to apply our chemicals to necessarily. We're trying to understand, what was water trying to do in the first place? How do we get out of water's way so that we can contain this vessel of one of Earth's most powerful elements and keep it happy? That's really all we're doing. We're mechanically and chemically manipulating water so that it stays happy. But if we follow the textbooks, that's really akin to imposing your will upon water. And a lot of those parameters, like pH being 7.4 to 7.6, that's physically impossible to do in most pools. You could go through, you could do it in our calculator or any calculator, and you can plug in the textbook ranges, and just completely screw up a pool. It's not hard. I can do it all the time. We could do 10 different examples on here. We don't have time for that. But the point is, you could be following those textbook parameters because you're looking at the trees and you don't see the forest. You don't understand what water's been screaming to you the whole time. I'll give you an example. Brothers Pool Service, your company. When you would do startups, right? Following the standard practices, the pH is sky high when you get there, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you add?
Acid.
Right, to lower the pH. But you come back the next day, where's the pH?
High again.
Exactly. But you just added acid. Doesn't that kind of defy logic? So what do you add the second day?
More acid.
More acid. You come back the third day. Where's the pH?
High again.
When are we going to figure out that this is a self-fulfilling prophecy? See, we look at something like that, and instead of saying, well, you just need to do more acid and just keep driving until it succumbs to your will, we say, wait, pump the brakes. Why is that happening? It is going to continue to happen. You think you're alone? You're not alone. You're dealing with something that you don't understand because you're focused on one factor. You're not looking at what the water's been screaming to you out loud. When you got to that pool, the pH was sky high. There could have been plaster dust, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think the LSI balance of that water was?
Not accurate.
Well,
on the negative or positive? Is that what you're
yeah,
asking?
I mean, if 0.0 is perfect, do you think you were really high, like scale forming, or do you think you're really low, like etching?
Low.
Because you dumped in a bunch of acid.
Correct.
Well, for a time you were, but when you got back there
Your scale.
and the pH was sky high, you would think that that would raise the LSI. You see how this is getting confusing, right?
Mm-hmm.
In reality, Greg, where do you think the LSI is?
Oh, I definitely have no idea.
I have an exact idea.
But after you answer this, I would like you to share like how complicated water really is, because you had just mentioned like how important it is, but water is one of the most misunderstood things. I mean, it's what separates us from, every other planet among a few other things.
It's also one of the simplest elements there is, believe it or not. But the LSI, when you come back to that startup, is perfect. It's 0.0.
That's right.
And I know that because you pissed it off by putting acid in because you were focused on pH, not the LSI. It had to eat the walls or the floor, dissolve calcium hydroxide, which has a 12.6 pH, spikes the pH until the LSI gets back to even, and then it stops eating. You can't eat more than it can hold. It's going to eat till it's satisfied and stop. So you come back, the LSI was actually perfect. But then you throw acid in it and you make it red again. Red being color-coded on our app.
Yep.
This is what we've been trained to do because we're not focused on the aggregate and the holistic view of all of what water wants. We're focused on a pH range. A pH range, by the way, that is impossible to maintain. In your experience as Brothers Pool Service, could you hold a pH of 7.4 for 10 minutes?
Doubtful.
Yeah, but you're supposed to do it for 7 days, right?
Right.
Where's anybody like pause to say, wait a second, how are we supposed to do this?
So sorry if I don't know this, but if it's, perfect within range chemistry, say everything was exactly where it's supposed to be, what does it look like on the LSI?
Depends on the temperature, depends on your cyanuric acid, depends on your total dissolved solids, because you could have everything perfect. What's a perfect pH? Well, from what we've been taught.
7.4.
7.4.
So I'm saying, the pool that you just asked Tyler about, like what if that same pool ended up being perfect, everything plugged in for the LSI, the temperature, everything like that. Like if it looked perfect on range chemistry, from what we know, what do you think would have been on the LSI?
Well,
if that makes sense.
Here in Phoenix, if the temperature's warm enough and you don't have too much cyanuric acid, it could definitely be in range. Is it going to be perfect? Probably not, but it'll be close enough. If you think of the LSI. So
there are times when they can both.
Oh yeah, they can be in harmony.
Okay.
But not all the time, right? So I don't care as much about what your LSI is at that moment. I mean, I care, don't get me wrong, but I care more about where's it going to be when you come back. See, we have to understand two different concepts of physics here. Water, to your question about how simple it is, water only cares about equilibrium. It doesn't care about you. It doesn't care what color it is. It doesn't care about anything except is it in equilibrium? And we measure that equilibrium using the saturation of calcium carbonate. That's what the LSI tells us. The LSI measures the saturation equilibrium of calcium carbonate, not calcium hardness. Calcium hardness is one of those factors that goes into it. And that's why we made the app, because there's a lot of math that goes into figuring out the saturation index. But the amount of calcium carbonate in your water would be calcium hardness, but how saturated the water is with that calcium carbonate is the LSI. So the difference would be like, you got a drink, you put sugar in that drink. We did a whole episode on this in our podcast. And I talk about it in class too. If I add sugar to it and I swirl it around, it dissolves. But if I add enough packets of sugar, eventually they're not going to dissolve and they're going to go straight to the bottom of the glass, right? I could shake that bottle for 10 minutes and I stop shaking it. Where's that extra sugar?
Gone.
No, it's not
Sinks
gone.
to the bottom.
Yeah, it goes right back to the bottom, right?
Right.
Why didn't it dissolve, Tyler?
There's too much in the water.
Water can't hold anymore. Replace the word sugar with calcium carbonate.
Right.
That's the LSI. If you have too much sugar in your pool, you have too much calcium carbonate in those conditions, those given conditions, pH, water temperature, carbonate alkalinity, etc., then you're going to get scale because water wants to get back to equilibrium. So it has to deposit calcium carbonate and get rid of it so it can get back down into equilibrium. Now, if you don't have enough sugar in your drink, water doesn't really care about sugar. But if you don't have enough calcium carbonate, water's pissed because it cares about equilibrium. So it is going to eat. It will etch your surface. It'll eat your tile grout. If you have a vinyl liner pool, it will fade it because it's looking for calcium. It's blind. Water's blind. It's just hungry. So it's going to start degrading anything that it can looking for calcium. Now, gel coats get degraded and then they get oxidized and they turn white and people think it's scale. It's not scale. It's a degraded gel coat that got oxidized, right? So we can see forensically, we can go back and look at damage to pools, and we do it every day, of what happened based on the LSI, because that's really all water cared about. And it's super predictable. pH is not controllable, but it's extremely predictable. Same with the LSI. So that's why. So it's not a dumb question that you're asking. I mean, it's a legit question that we get asked by pros all the time. Like, is it that big of an ask to think about the LSI first and range chemistry second? It's different, but how good do you want to be? Do you want to be a good pool company or a good pool professional, or do you want to be a great one? You might want to start listening to water.
I agree.
I think it's episode 59, by the way. How to implement the Orenda program.
Oh, you're the man.
Is that it?
Episode 59. Thank you.
Episode 59.
That's right.
We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, Eric discusses how companies can implement the LSI into their standard practices, why everything starts with a culture shift, and how to get buy-in from your team. This episode is brought to you by Leslie's. The pool industry has seen its ups and downs for the past few years, but Leslie's has been there through it all to provide you with best-in-class service, competitive pricing, and available inventory on products you use every day. Leslie's is determined to be your go-to resource for building your business, and they will partner with you to help save both time and money. Visit your local Leslie's store today. To learn more about their exclusive pool trade professional programs, check out episode 151 and 165 of the podcast. This episode is also brought to you by Primate Pool Tools. Cut through the water with ease with an ultra-strong and super lightweight carbon fiber pole. Primate poles are available in multiple models with length options for every level of service, whether you work on spas or Olympic-sized swimming pools. Their strength makes them ideal for heavy vacuums like Riptide, and their ultra-lightweight makes cleaning any pool easier. All Primate poles are handmade in the USA, come with a commercial warranty, and are even available in custom prints. For more info, click the link below or go to primatepooltools.net. You can also use our special promo code PoolChasers2022 for $20 off. And to learn more about the guys behind Primate Pool Tools, check out episodes 104 and 199. Now you're speaking about the app and you just said be a great pool company, right? I've always wondered, I could see as an individual or a team of one or two, like how this might be very doable and you could operate at a high level like Joe Mishik does. But when you get to a bigger company, a larger company, you have multiple technicians that get turned over all the time. You have, let's say 25 pool technicians out there.
Right.
How can you teach them to operate this way and still be efficient and still be profitable? Because I find it hard. I have heard you talk about it before. It's been a long time ago, but I've always wondered again, I guess, just how do you operate that way? Because I think it's very difficult, to be honest.
Well, it can be very difficult. And to be honest with you, I kind of wish I had show notes in front of me where I could make like 3 bullet points because there's a lot to unpack in your question.
I'm sure there is.
The first thing is the difference between the good pool service companies that we deal with around the country, and we know thousands of companies. That's no exaggeration. There's a lot of pool companies out there. Way more than I thought, by the way. I never would have thought there'd be so many pool companies, but there are. The good ones are so much different than the great ones. And it is like an obvious difference. It's kind of like, who's the best golfer you personally know? Like maybe you have a buddy or your friend's dad, somebody who's like really good at golf, right?
Mm-hmm.
How good are they compared to the PGA championship golfers?
Not very
very
good.
good.
Not very
Not even comparable, right? That's kind of the difference that we see between the very few great companies ahead of all the good ones. And there's a lot of good ones.
That's what I always say about football. Like you could, you got like the backup quarterback or something. That dude is the best quarterback anybody's ever seen in his hometown, right? All the time.
Yep.
But he just never plays. Like because it's such a difference, right?
Or you have
talent.
the
Unless you're
Heisman,
talking about Rush.
or you have the Heisman Trophy winner that doesn't even start in the NFL.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
So, but my point is like, the difference is not skills. The difference is not intelligence. The difference is not anything but culture. Culture is what the separating factor is. We've seen this. We have so many data points on this. We could talk for hours on company culture. The great companies have an unbelievably different culture, almost polar opposite to the good ones. They think completely differently. And we do a podcast episode on this as well on ours. And we have an article about it called Standardizing Pool Chemistry. So to your point, how do you make a larger company do this? It starts with a belief system. You have to start by obeying physics and not fighting it. If we get out of the way of thinking that we can defeat water, everything becomes a lot easier to comprehend. Humility builds empires. Hubris brings down empires. If you think for one frickin' minute that you can maintain a pH of 7.4 to 7.6 for a week while you're gone without an autocover, acid feeder, or trichlor feeder, you are out of your mind. You can't do it. And deep down, those of you listening, you already know what I'm saying is true because you've never been able to do it. Or you have a bad test kit that's telling you the wrong information because it's physics. It's not my opinion. We have to understand that physics has always been the same way. So we start with a basis of facts. We have to live in reality. You don't get to pick your truth when it comes to water treatment. There is no your truth in general. There is the truth. And the truth is laws of physics have existed long before mankind. They're still here. And so we could give examples of why we know pH is going to naturally rise, and we may get into that in a few minutes. But we also know the fundamental truth that water cares about balance. That's what it wants. So once we start there, the belief system, now we start to standardize. How do you implement
But
this?
what does that look like? I mean, say you're going up to a company's office warehouse, everybody meets at 6 a.m. Like, where does that culture start? Like, what did you see at those companies that was different than the ones that are good, not great? Like, is it just a constant, they're...
Oh, it's a great question. I'll tell you exactly what the difference is.
You see what I'm saying?
They incentivize and reward people for speaking up about their problems. When you go into, you had Brothers Pool Service. How many techs did you have out there? Handful?
6.
6.
I think.
Perfect. Were they all the exact same experience?
No.
Of course not. You had your veteran or veterans, and you had your newbies. What incentive does your veteran have to speak up about a green pool that he has? None. Why would he possibly speak up about his problems? That's going to make him look bad, right? Or scale or anything, because there's only 2 types of pool professionals out there, those that have some problem pools and those who refuse to admit that they have some problem pools. Everybody's got them. And there shouldn't be shame in that. And so these great companies make that known. Like, there is no shame in having problem pools. In fact, we need to hear about them. So there's a lot of benefits to speaking up about your problems. Whereas in a company where everyone's kind of doing their own thing, Greg, you do it your way, and Tyler, you do it your way, because you've been doing this for 10 years and he's been doing this for 12 years and it works for me. Great. That's not a profitable business model, because how are the newbies supposed to learn? They're not learning from your past mistakes because you won't talk about your past mistakes. That's a huge problem. Now, if you've got 6 people, that is 6 times the weekly experience that one person could possibly have. 6 times. Guaranteed they're going to have a problem during that week. And hopefully it's a small one. But by incentivizing them and rewarding them for speaking up about it, the other guy, the newbie who might be nervous to speak up about it, is like, wait, I have that too. How did you deal with it? What did you do? And then you get to learn. You get to learn from the other people's experiences.
It took me a second to think about this, but I'm starting to remember things from Brothers. But We had a similar system when, people would put things into our software. They would be paid extra, incentivized for making that catch.
That's unbelievably rare.
And that was a while back ago, but we still weren't there with the training. And I am more curious as to, are companies saying we're going to take the whole week off and we're going to have a great time, the best time we can possibly have in understanding chemistry more? Are they doing things Monday mornings? Are they taking time to do it? Because it's not that easy to just, you work 5 days a week, if that's your schedule from 6 to however late. Like do they have trainers that are on people for, a month, a few weeks? And are they being released because there was some times where things were just like kind of desperate, you know what I mean? Where you're like, you kind of sound like you know what you're doing.
Any of the manufacturers listening to this that do the trade shows like we do at Orenda, which pretty much every manufacturer that you would recognize in the industry, they're going to understand what I'm about to say. Your location dictates your willingness to learn based on your climate. Here in Phoenix, Arizona, you don't have an off season. They're a lot less prone to take classes and take time to invest in themselves and learn continuing education here, Southern California, Houston, Texas, Florida. Go to the Northeast.
Mm-hmm.
You want to see education? You go to the Northeast. That's a seasonal market. My word, you would not recognize those kind of educational classes. We had a class easily over 100 people, standing room only, at the Northeast show. We had one that had almost 300 people in it. You don't get that out west. You don't get that at the Western show. You don't get that at any, and it's not disrespect to the Western show or any of the other shows. Shows are awesome. What I'm saying is people don't have the time because you don't have an off season.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a reality of the business. Nothing you can really do about that except you have to adapt. You got to learn somehow, right? I learned chemistry on the job. I didn't take time off to do that. I was working the whole time and I had to do it. People make do. Let's not pretend that running a swimming pool service business is an easy job. You guys know this better than anyone. Even being a service tech that isn't running the business, that's not an easy job. It's a hard job. You're working every day, early in the morning.
It's the hardest job.
It can be. And depending on how you look at it, everyone's like, I don't have the time. Well, listen, if you invest in your own unique ability, it is never an expense. Ever. Invest in your own unique ability. If you are a pool professional, then be a damn professional. Invest in your ability to be the best professional you can be, whether it's 5 minutes a week or an hour a week or whatever it is. Go at your own pace, but be consistent with it. And that's not to talk down to people. It's just to say, you're not alone. Don't think that you can just wing it and be very successful in this business. I want to get back to, I hope that answered your question.
Yeah.
I want to get back to this standardization concept because this is a huge concept, especially for the bigger companies. Have you ever heard the etymology or the root of the word decide?
Nope.
No.
Okay. It comes from Latin. Well, de means to originate from, to come off of, right? To come from. Side, CIDE. Does that sound familiar to you? Algicides, homicide, genocide,
Yep.
Suicide, pesticide. What do you think it means?
Die.
Kill. It means to kill.
Kill.
So a true decision, if I'm holding my hand out here, I got 4 fingers out. A true decision is not, I'm going to go with the ring finger, but I'm going to keep my options open. In case that doesn't work out, I'm going to back out and then I'm going to pick the index. No. A true decision is you kill off the other options so they don't exist anymore and you commit to one. That's what decide actually means. These other things are no longer an option because I've killed them off. I'm going with the ring finger. That's a decision. You get to decide things in your business. You get to decide what factors matter in your water, in your business, whatever it is. So what we say at Orenda is decide to simplify your route. Decide to obey physics. Decide that range chemistry, while it's a good guideline, doesn't always apply to you. It's okay to break certain ranges. Not all, but some of them. In the name of getting to what water actually wants, which is LSI balance. And people will argue with us. I have no fear of sitting down and debating anybody who's going to tell me that LSI does not reign supreme. I'll do it in a trade show in front of hundreds of people. You will not make the argument to me very easily because the proof is in the pudding. We have been doing this with thousands of pools around the country, and the results are unanimous. Oh my God, where were you guys 30 years ago? We didn't come up with the LSI. Dr. Langlier came up with it in the 1930s. We didn't even bring it to the pool industry. It's been talked about since the 70s. Nobody read it. It's hard. It's difficult. You open a Taylor test kit, there's a wheel in there, paper wheel. That's the LSI. Now, it doesn't have CYA on it, but generally speaking, this is not a new concept. It's just a misunderstood concept. But nobody said, hey, you really need to pay attention to that wheel. That's where we at Orenda are different in that we've been screaming this basically. We beat the drum of the LSI all the time because that's what water is screaming to you. That's what water cares about. So how do we standardize this? You'd ask the question of like, it's much easier to have simple habits. How do you get guys to follow along? The first thing is they have to know why they're doing it. They have to understand the importance of it. That's step one. And then you standardize by understanding your location. So in Phoenix, you have roughly the same weather for all your pools, right? But if you're a nationwide company, that's not so easy because you have pools in different climates. But let's say you're a local company, like the vast majority of them are. You're going to make parameters that are going to help you stay LSI balanced year round. And you're going to anchor that in things that don't move much. The main thing, of course, is calcium hardness. Calcium hardness is the rock that you're going to build your foundation upon. You don't want to build a house on sand. You want to build it on rock. Calcium hardness doesn't move much. It gets diluted out. Calcium hardness from your tap water gets pulled in, and that's about it. If you're using Cal Hypo, it'll raise. But the point is, like, it's generally very predictable. Would you agree? Calcium hardness?
Yeah.
Compared to alkalinity. Most people are so focused on pH and alkalinity that they don't even pay attention to calcium hardness. A few years ago, we asked, how much calcium hardness test reagent is sold compared to phenol red for pH? There's a rounding error. It's like it wasn't getting sold at all because people weren't paying attention because too much calcium leads to scale, right? Mm-hmm. They didn't understand that scale is not based on your calcium hardness level alone. It's based on the LSI, calcium hardness in these given conditions. So I want to go back to that bottle of water with the sugar in it. If I put 10 packets of sugar in there, 9 of them dissolved, but the 10th did not dissolve. The 9 that's dissolved in this scenario would be my calcium hardness. That's the amount of dissolved calcium carbonate. But it's oversaturated because some of it is not dissolved. What could I do to that bottle of water to get that 10th packet of sugar to dissolve?
Add more water?
Yeah, I could dilute it, but in reality, in a pool, are you going to go into the backyard with an excavator and just dig it bigger?
Right. No.
Right. So how do you could dilute it though? Like you could drain it down or you could overflow it intentionally. That would be dilution for sure. Mm-hmm. Dilution's one way you could do it.
Stir it?
You could stir it, but we've been stirring it for 10 minutes and the sugar still falls to the bottom. That doesn't change the saturation. What else could we do to the water?
Dump some out?
Well, that would be dilution. Same amount of water. What could we do to it? Think about dissolving sugar. You ever make like sweet tea or anything?
Warm it up.
Warm it up. Bingo. You change the temperature. Same amount of water, same amount of sugar. Suddenly, that 10th packet dissolved because you change the parameters of that water and you change the equilibrium of it. You still have the same amount of sugar that you poured in the same amount of water, and now the equilibrium shifted so that you can hold it. You see what I'm saying? Mm. Now, calcium's the opposite. Calcium actually likes colder water, but the concept is the same. You changed the temperature. Now your equilibrium moved. Well, with calcium carbonate, there's a lot of things. In fact, there's 6, 7 if you use borate, but 6 factors that affect this. Your temperature, your pH, your carbonate alkalinity, which needs to deduct your CYA, your cyanurate alkalinity, and borate if you use it, and then your TDS, your total dissolved solids, and your calcium hardness, of course. So when you look at the aggregate, and this is what the Orenda Calculator does, in real time, you just change those numbers, and it'll tell you how balanced you are. That's the key. So when we're doing this, we want to be so focused on where is the water happiest? Where is it balanced? Where is it going to go? And the way I look at it is, as long as you are in LSI balance on our calculator that's yellow or green year round, water's happy with you. And that's a beautiful thing because then it doesn't have the ability to etch. It doesn't have the ability to scale. So I guess we start there. Standardizing it is just picking a foundation. So for example, with Brothers Pool Service, you're in Phoenix. let's play on the range of temperatures. How cold is your water going to get here in a given winter?
50s.
50s. Okay, so let's say worst case scenario, 50 degrees. Right? Is that fair?
Sure.
Okay. If it only gets down to 50, you could have like a freak winter event, but it's unlikely, right?
Yep.
50 degrees. How hot can it get in the summer?
90s.
Okay, so that's a delta of 40 something degrees.
Yep.
It's a big difference on the LSI.
Sure.
So you need to have a plan throughout the year to account for that temperature difference. You need to treat your water very differently in December and January that you do in June and July because the temperature is so much different. So the parameters of that sugar water have changed. You need to find a calcium level at that given time of year, ideally for the whole year, that is going to allow for you to stay LSI balanced year round. Now, the people in the Northeast and the Midwest, they actually have a distinct advantage in this, even though they may not think that. I look at it as, your pool's going to freeze. We would get calcification on these pools that winterize, and people thought it was scale.
Sure.
That just demonstrates like a firm misunderstanding of the LSI or ignorance of it. And I don't mean like disrespect. It's like we didn't know what we didn't know, but that's not scale. Scale doesn't form in cold water very easily.
Right.
So by understanding what water's been trying to do, understanding the LSI, you can pick a calcium hardness level, a foundation that allows for you to change other small factors easily, like alkalinity and pH, which are easy to correct with acid or bicarb. Calcium's not so easy, right? You have to dilute it to reduce it, build your foundation. So what it looks like in Brothers Pool Service, I'm just going to throw it out here because I've never lived in Phoenix, but I know it gets really hot. Let's say you're aiming for 300 calcium hardness on every pool you had. Now, how many hundreds of pools were you servicing? Like 200, 300?
400.
400.
Yeah.
400 pools. Okay, guys, here's how it's going to go. We're going to break this into two categories, salt pools and everything else. The salt pools are going to have 300 to 320 calcium, every single one of them. The everything else pools are going to have 280 to 300 calcium, every single one of them. That is where you start. That is the beginning of your standardization of your company. So much so that like there's great software out now that you can use on your routing that like a control center that'll show you if something's out of what you set it as a parameter, that pool is going to stick out like a sore thumb with a red alert saying, hey, Tyler, this one has 240 calcium.
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be 280 to 300 because it's a non-salt pool or whatever it is. Start with calcium. Then from that, you're going to pick your alkalinity based on the time of year. So if it's a saltwater pool, do you need 80 to 120 alkalinity? Hard no, not in the summer. Maybe in the winter, but if it's the winter, the water's cold enough that you're not using your salt cell. So again, we go into far more detail on this on our podcast and website, but the point is, based on the time of year, based on your primary chlorine type, you set your foundation of calcium, then you pick your alkalinity from there. You want to have a decent ratio, minimum 3-to-1 calcium to alkalinity. The ratio itself is not important. It's just kind of like a learning lesson. The ratio is actually irrelevant, except that it makes you think differently about alkalinity, and that's the value in it. You don't want a lot of alkalinity in a saltwater pool or liquid chlorine pool or a cal hypo pool because it's going to affect how high your pH goes and how fast it goes there. Everything with pH is about CO2. I'll get to that later if we get there.
So on that example of 300, where do you want the alkalinity to start?
Is it a salt pool or liquid or what?
Either way.
Pick one.
Probably trichlor would be your more popular one here.
Okay, so you need a little more alkalinity because trichlor is acidic. So let's say 80 to 90 alkalinity for that pool, if it's trichlor. If it's salt, 60. 60 to 70 tops. If you go over 70, you're going to start having issues. 50 to 70 is probably appropriate. Now, I don't go below 50 because then it becomes a slippery slope. But the amount of alkalinity in your pool completely dictates the rate of your pH rise, because pH is all about carbon dioxide. We didn't make this up. Like, again, physics, not an opinion. So you can predict where your chemistry is going to go based on the parameters that you have, based on carbon dioxide loss. So like in Northern California, one of the things that we see a lot is people with suppressed pHs because they can't lose CO2 because they have auto covers. An auto cover fundamentally changes the physics of that pool. The holy grail, to those of you listening who manufacture covers, is a mesh auto cover, not a solid one. If you make auto covers, all you manufacturers that may listen to this, make them mesh. They're still safety covers, but they can breathe CO2. That pool needs to respirate. it will be a game changer for the water quality of these pools to allow that pool to go through its natural cycle. Instead, you're capping the beer and shaking it. You're building up pressure. You're changing the chemistry. You're not allowing things to off gas that need to off gas. And you're not allowing dilution in either. So if you have like a trichlor feeder on an auto cover pool, that's a disaster waiting to happen. We see surfaces get completely destroyed by this because the CO2 can't escape. Therefore, the pH can't go up, and it just drives the pH down, 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 and it just etches the hell out of those walls. We see it all the time. So those of you listening, I'm sure you do have people that listen to this that manufacture covers. You make an auto cover, make it mesh. Thank you on behalf of the industry. Anyways, I lost my train of thought, but it was
so you're just standardizing then where your pH goes and from there.
Yeah. You start there and then
your alkalinity.
The first thing you do
calcium then alkalinity.
I should back up now that you got me thinking about this because we just talked about a trichlor feeder. The first thing you should actually address is your cyanuric acid because you have to dilute to get that down. Almost always, especially on a trichlor pool, you have too much of it. So get to 50 or less. That's where you should start because if you have to drain half your pool, why would you spend all the money on calcium?
That's where I get with this, right? So you have 1,600 pools.
Yeah.
No, very few of those are under 50 CYA in Arizona.
I know.
So it's a very tall task to get to a point where it's operational.
It is, but you have to adapt. If you can't get the CYA levels down, you have to chlorinate more. Or you have to compensate for that cyanurid alkalinity with something else to make up for it. So what we did in the Orenda calculators, we added a toggle for showing secondary readings, and it'll show you your carbon and alkalinity in real time and your pH ceiling. And what that pH ceiling is, which is based on your carbon and alkalinity, it's showing you where your pH is going to be at the end of the week. Maybe not at the end of the week, but when it equalizes. And it's basically giving you the finish line. This is the worst case scenario, Tyler. If you have these parameters in here, your pH is going to be 8.31 eventually. Now, with a trichlor feeder, it may never get there because it's acidic and you're constantly beating down that pH. But it's trying to go there. That's where water is going to be happy, 8.31 or whatever it is. And your job is to go on that calculator and put it to 8.3 and say, hey, when it gets there, what's my LSI? Because I know it's going there. I know it's going to 8.31. And if it gets there, am I going to scale up this pool? The answer is almost certainly yes, if it's 8.31. And we've done all this homework for you, so we've color-coded these numbers in the app to make it easy. If it's a purple number, you probably don't want to be there. If it's a green number, you're probably fine. You just pick your parameters within that to contain it. And I know this sounds deep, especially for people who are not used to training water chemistry, but just understand that physics never changed. Like this has always been going on. We've just been dumping so much acid and bicarb into these pools that you didn't notice. But the pool has always been trying to do the same thing. It's always been trying to get back to equilibrium. So standardizing, start with CYA, then calcium, then alkalinity, and then decide to take things out of the equation. Like we make a phosphate remover, get phosphates out of the equation, especially if you're on trichlor. Not every pool needs it, but like if you're on trichlor, you're slowing down your chlorine, make it more efficient, right? These are the things that you can do, and you make a pattern out of it. And then on a weekly route, there's very few changes you need to make. We call them micro adjustments. If you have lower alkalinity, your acid dose is also going to be lower. You don't need as much acid that week. So you got 60 alkalinity instead of 120. That's half the acid every week. That's great. And by the way, that's half the bicarb too, because you're reducing it half as much. So you're not going to be spending nearly as much. And that's profitability right there. So we could talk for hours on this. I don't want to put you to sleep, Tyler. I apologize.
I'm curious, all the service companies that you talk with, have you seen anybody test differently? Because I always found that to be one of the more difficult things is that you're giving a technician kind of these tasks and they've got to kneel down and test this and do that and go on their phone. Like, have you seen, somebody maybe, I know you probably wouldn't want a bottle from another pool or something, but have you seen people take water like into their truck and do stuff? Because, weather conditions can be son of a bitch. There's all kinds of things that happen. I mean, ideally you'd like some little platform to pop up and you just doing everything with a table, but it's like, you're trying to do all this shit on the ground. You got a homeowner that comes out and is throwing you off while you're trying to process things and think. And
sure.
there's all things, there's tons of variables. I'm just curious with your experience. Have you seen any innovation in that area?
Well, yes, I would say it depends on where you are. So like in the Northeast, if you're measuring water in the spring and it's cold, you're not going to get an accurate reading. So you should be grabbing a sample of water and warming it up, either putting it in your truck or in your jacket pocket or something to get it warmer before you test. And then you clean everything else. Then you test your water a few minutes later. I've seen that. I do think getting a sample of water is great because you can just do your tests sort of rapid fire instead of dipping down and getting another one directly out of the pool. Take a clean bottle, rinse it out in the pool water itself, grab a sample, and then just pour, get it done. If you're using like a reagent test kit, I've seen everything from test strips to spin touches on pool sides. So everybody just kind of does it their own way. We get a lot of questions about what test kit does Orenda recommend? And the truth is what you're most comfortable with and what you take the best care of. Because you can get more accurate readings out of a well-maintained test strip than a poorly maintained digital kit that hasn't been calibrated. So,
and all that adds to my point of like, it's very complicated to do what you're asking to do.
I know that.
I got it. Why didn't I think
it just
of this?
keeps adding to it.
You got an idea?
We need a fleet of drones to just go to the pool and do the chemistry part of it. And nobody has to worry about it anymore.
There you go.
Easy, done.
Look, why did you just come up with this now? You could have been making millions on this, Greg. But
I want to work in that division.
It's a tall ask. And I don't disagree with you on that. But here's the thing. The companies that have adopted this, I don't think they're ever going back. It was tough to start it. It's very easy to maintain it. Once you're in this groove, water becomes predictable for the first time ever. And when you see this, you're going to get so good at this that you can pull into the driveway before you even see that pool tiler. You're going to know, I'm going to just make up the numbers. It's going to be 60 something alkalinity, 7.9 pH, and 310 calcium. And you're going to be right.
Yeah.
Every week. And
but
then
I've
had conversations with Joe, and I've had, it's very difficult to find anybody that's going to spend time doing that and be profitable and pay people.
We have a lot of adoption. You'd be surprised. People, when they change it and they see their profitability difference. Here's the thing. We are in a tough business. It is tough to make a good living in this industry. And nothing warms my heart better than somebody calling me back like, I cannot believe how much easier this is. We've literally
I would love
had
to talk to you
calls.
about other companies that are doing that because at a large scale, because I'm not sure I believe it all.
Well, I think that's
I
the
like
thing
skeptics,
is,
but trust me, they do. And yeah, we can talk offline or online.
I can talk online too, but it's getting...
Yeah, but
that question went way longer than I anticipated.
It's kind of like what this is about. I mean, it's one of the biggest concerns, but I think that, like you said, it's about the culture. The culture has to be like in line. Everybody has to know the owner, the service manager, everybody has to be confident in that in order to project it. But I know what it's like being with small companies and trying to do that. And it was very, very difficult.
How do you get buy-in? How do you get buy-in in any business or any class or any sports team? It comes from culture. If the culture is everybody buys in and you come into this company and everybody's on board doing the same thing, rowing the boat in the same direction, you're going to conform to the culture. The culture does not conform to one person. You conform to the culture, and culture starts at the top. I'm going to give you an example of how I've seen some companies pull this off with like hundreds and hundreds of pools, if not thousands. One company, I'm not going to say their name, but I call it my mojo concept because when I was a swimmer, we were training for Olympic trials. We're at this point adults, like we're all out of college and we were training for Olympic trials, post-grad. And we're training, and this one day, I mean, we had a brutal week, brutal week, very hard training that week. And one guy had a more difficult week than the most. I think he vomited in 2 of the 7 workouts or whatever it was. And at the end of it, my coach gives him this, almost like a Beanie Baby, just like this stuffed monkey, this little children's toy monkey named Mojo the monkey. He hands it to him and says, "You earned this week." And all of us were like,
what the fuck?
Yeah, like, what? Like, we don't get it. Well, we just thought it was kind of funny. Like, okay,
Sure.
Yeah, he had the worst week ever. Like, we all watched it. I guess that was just like the pity clap, right? Okay, the next Saturday happens. End of the week, drain the tank. He asks him, who gets the mojo this week? The coach was not giving you recognition. He got to pick it, the athlete who had the mojo. Let me tell you something. About 3 or 4 weeks into this, I wanted that goddamn mojo. I did, because I wasn't seeking coach approval. Now it's peer recognition. Are you training at that level with your peers? That changes the game fundamentally. I wanted that mojo. I needed to prove to everybody around me, not just the mojo holder, that I was worthy of that mojo. And by the time I got it, and I did eventually get it, it was like all mildewy. It'd been in swim bags. It was disgusting, but that was part of the thing. It was like, that was the reward. You wanted that stupid little monkey because of what it represented. I saw this exact concept in a company in Florida with a broken skimmer lid. Someone stepped on the skimmer lid. You can't sell it, right? He spray painted it gold and put it on the dashboard of his worst employee that week. Not his worst employee as a person, meaning he had the worst week of, like he had the biggest problems that week, but he rewarded him for speaking up about it. That guy got to parade around with the golden skimmer, and then he decided the next week who deserved it, who had the biggest problem that they overcame, who brought the biggest problem to the table, who had the most obnoxious homeowner that he had to deal with, who had you see what I'm saying? Like, that guy got the golden skimmer the next week. It became a rite of passage. It did not become something where you're covering things up, because if you cover things up, there's no way your company learns from your mistakes. You don't get better as a team. But if you reward it, not rewarding you for doing something wrong, but for overcoming adversity and learning from it and teaching your friends and your teammates about it, that culture does a 180. That's where the great companies start. It's that. When you have that, and that's kind of an intangible thing, but if we're all employees and we don't own the company, the three of us sitting here, if you're the veteran and I'm the newbie, I have no incentive to ask questions because I don't want to be embarrassed. I don't want to make you not like me or whatever it is. You're not going to share your problems because you're the veteran, right? Like, you have ego at stake. This completely negates all of that. All of us want that golden skimmer. All of us are on the same team. Oh, wait, you have this problem? I had this problem before. I had this 2 years ago. Let me tell you what I did. That's a huge paradigm shift that most companies never even do, because ego gets in the way of it and it stops them from being profitable. And I'm telling you, of the truly great companies in this country, I can think of less than 10. No insult to all of our great customers out there. There are a lot of good customers, good companies. They're not bad, but they're not great either. There is a huge difference in culture between the great companies, and they're few and far between. That's what I'm getting at.
Let me ask you this.
That's the answer I'm sort of looking for earlier. So,
oh shit, we
I
could have just cut.
We could just cut right to that.
Why don't you just edit this out, Tyler?
Well,
Jeez, you really know how to just punt me right between the legs. That's great.
Outside of culture, I think the other big thing is how many pools are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Like most of those companies, what's the average amount of pools you think they're doing in a day?
One of them has individually people.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, one of them has about 1,200 pools on service.
How many is
the
a service
guy
doing a day?
10 to 12.
Exactly.
Why? How many are you guys doing?
That's not the Arizona model for sure.
What's the Arizona model?
16, 18,
20.
Well, adapt and thrive. I mean, listen, the more you standardize, the less work you have to do when you get there.
Sure.
That's the thing, where you guys are really
I'm
going to solve.
Chemical wise.
I'm anti 15, 20, 30, 40 pools.
You are.
But
I agree.
My point is,
concept is
if you're chasing shit, you're the pool chasers, right? You don't want to be the pH chasers. You don't want to be the pH chasers. You can't control pH. You never could control pH. The only thing that can is physics. Mm-hmm. You better understand what that physics is, embrace it, and it will do all the work for you. It will do the work for you. You have to try to screw it up. And people, they've tried and they fail, because physics is a law, right? It will help you. Henry's Law, look it up. We have a whole podcast series on it. But the idea is, know where you are today, stay in LSI compliance now, and make sure that when your pH naturally rises to that pH ceiling, you're still LSI balanced. If you are at the bottom and at the top of that pH range, that it's naturally going to rise in between, checkmate. It's very hard to screw it up at that point.
And I'm playing devil's advocate because I've bought into Orenda a long time ago. I mean, we've been friends for years, and I've been friends with Harold too. So I love the concept and the idea. I just think it's super difficult to implement.
It sounds different, kind of like the startup sounds really difficult, but the people who do it for the first time, they're like, oh, this is actually easier than what I was doing, but it's different. Don't look at it like I can control this water. Look at what is the water going to do if I don't show up for a month? Where's the water going? How do I get it as close to that as possible and keep it clean and clear? Once again, it's a paradigm shift, but it works. That's why people adopt it.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any other questions. Do you?
I mean, I could talk about it forever, but no. We're good.
You guys have been awesome. Thanks for having me on. Sorry to wear you down with that answer. I thought we were making progress. Come to find out.
No, you're good. Good. No, you're good.
Oh, you say that now. They're all rolling their eyes. This is not on film, but if you saw it, Tyler's eyes just rolled in the back of his head violently.
Asshole. Anyway, thank you so much, Eric. Really appreciate you being on the show with us. Where can people find you, Orenda, and a lot of the things we're talking about today?
Oh, we're easy to find. Our website is Orenda Tech. That's OrendaTech.com. We have a help center, which is ask.orendatech.com, and academy, which is academy.orendatech.com. Our blog is blog.orendatech.com. You sensing a theme here?
Yeah, just Google Orenda.
Yeah, you'll find us. But yeah, if you want to reach out, you can email me at podcast@orendatech.com.
And the podcast is called Rule Your Pool.
Yeah, it's Rule Your Pool, and you guys helped set it up. So I wanted to thank you, and that's the main reason I'm here at your place. I came to Phoenix for the Pentair training, but I came here because you guys really got us started on that podcast, and we owe that to you. So thank you for that. You guys have a great show. It's an honor to be on here.
Double G.
You're welcome, and thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Hey, Pool Chasers. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. To connect with today's guests, including pictures, links, and resources from everything discussed today, you can visit the episode page at poolchasers.com or click the links below. To connect more with us, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter by searching at Pool Chasers. If you would like to support the podcast, the easiest and most effective way is to subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube, as well as share the show or your favorite episode with a friend or on social media. Also, you can get early access to each episode by supporting us through Patreon. We know your time is valuable, so thank you for sharing some of yours with us today.
See you out there, Pool Chasers.